Good evening. Once again, I'm Steve Kornacki in for Brian Williams, who has the night off. Day 1,320 of the Trump administration and 64 days until the presidential election. Donald Trump is pushing to center stage of this campaign a message of what he calls law and order, escalating his efforts to portray his opponent, Joe Biden, as someone who would preside over a chaotic and lawless America. Today, Biden fought back. He is blaming Trump for the violence that has broken out in various cities around the country this summer and that erupted again this weekend in Portland, Oregon. A caravan of Trump supporters drove through that city on Saturday, clashing with demonstrators who were protesting police brutality. Trump supporters in trucks reportedly shot paintball guns at the protesters, who then threw objects back at them. One man affiliated with a right-wing group was shot and killed. The president took to social media in the wake of all of this, praising the pro-Trump activists as great patriots. The president also retweeted a message supporting the 17-year-old charged in connection with two fatal shootings during the unrest in Kenosha, Wisconsin last week. Those demonstrations were in response to the police shooting of Jacob Blake, who is now said to be paralyzed.
He's stoking violence in our cities. I want to make it absolutely clear. Rioting is not protesting. Looting is not protesting. Setting fires is not protesting. None of this is protesting. It's lawlessness, plain and simple. And those who do it should be prosecuted. Do I look like a radical socialist with a soft spot for rioters? Really? I want a safe America, safe from COVID, safe from crime and looting, safe from racially motivated violence, safe from bad cops. Let me be crystal clear. Safe from 4 more years of Donald Trump. He's rooting for chaos and violence. These are not images of some imagined Joe Biden America in the future. These are images of Donald Trump's America today. He keeps telling you, if only he was president, it wouldn't happen. Well, he is president, whether he knows it or not. And it is happening.
And a few hours later, the president offered this response.
The rioters and Joe Biden have a side. They're both on the side of the radical left, and that is so obvious. For what I saw, I don't believe you mentioned the word Antifa. When you surrender the mob, you don't get freedom, you get fascism.
Your supporters were also in Portland this weekend, firing paintball guns at people, some form of pepper spray. So do you want to also take this chance to condemn what your supporters did?
Well, I understand they had large numbers of people that were supporters, but that was a peaceful protest. And paint is not, and paint as a defensive mechanism, paint is not bullets.
Are you going to condemn the actions of vigilantes like Kyle Rittenhouse?
We're looking at all of it. That was an interesting situation. You saw the same tape as I saw. And he was trying to get away from them, I guess, it looks like. And he fell. And then they very violently attacked him. And it was something that we're looking at right now, and it's under investigation. But I guess he was in very big trouble. He would have been. He probably would have been killed. But it's under investigation.
The president will be in Kenosha tomorrow. He is scheduled to meet with law enforcement there. As of tonight, there are no plans for him to meet with Jacob Blake's family. Wisconsin's Democratic governor and the mayor of Kenosha did ask Trump to delay the visit, given the ongoing tensions in that city. Another message that Joe Biden took pains to try to emphasize in that speech today was on that topic of defunding the police that's gotten so much attention the last few months. Here's what he had to say about that.
I not only don't want to defund police, I want to add $300 billion to their $1 million to their budget, local budgets, to deal with community policing, to get police and communities back together again. Every cop, when he puts on that badge, has the right to expect to be able to go home at night and be able to be safe.
Kimberly, that speech today, it is sort of zooming out from there. There's Joe Biden on the road, going to Pittsburgh, delivering a speech. You didn't have a lot of the theatrical aspects I think we're accustomed to in a campaign, but that was closer to a quote-unquote normal campaign speech, I think, than we've seen a lot in recent months. Is this the start of a more normal, not a completely normal, but a more normal campaign by the former vice president?
Yes, it was that, and it was more than that. Look, after Labor Day, the campaign has said that they intend to have more in-person events, socially distanced, mask-wearing events that will look different than Donald Trump's campaign events. So this was a preview of that. But what this also was, very importantly, was a point-by-point refute of all of the things that Donald Trump has been trying to tag Joe Biden with. He's tried to tag him as some sort of empty vessel of some crazy, unknown, radical left-wing folks who are controlling him. And nothing that Joe Biden said today sounded radical or left-wing. Trump is trying to peg Biden as somebody who wants to defund police, as you played in that clip. Joe Biden does not want to do that. In fact, Joe Biden, when it comes to policing and reforming criminal justice reform, was known most for crime bills that he supported that some folks say led, and that there's evidence to support, led to over-criminalization of Black people that had to be reversed by efforts over the subsequent years. So he clearly is not someone who wants to remove police from communities or go to the left wing, which is what makes this attempt to paint him that way by the president pretty clearly disingenuous. What the president seems to be doing here is trying to foment the discord and the division, which he and members of his own campaign have openly said helps him politically.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.